RRF Caserta, South Italy. News in English.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're taking a stack of sources, all the big Italian sports dailies, and we're going to cut through the noise. We want to understand what's really going on in European football and, well, a little bit beyond.
And what we found this week is it's a really bizarre disconnect right at the heart of Italian football. It's fascinating.
It is. We've got one team, Juventus, that won their big Champions League match. But if you read the sources, it's like they've suffered some kind of catastrophe. Internal criticism is just massive.
And then you flip the page and you see Napoli. They lost. But their manager comes out with this almost scientific reason for the defeat, and he's somehow managed to shift the entire conversation.
Exactly. It's no longer about the loss, it's about the calendar.
Right. So we are going way past the scoreline today. We're dissecting everything. Player ratings, those wild financial disclosures, and the narratives that are coming out of these press conferences.
We're here to understand why a win is being treated like a failure, why being tired is the new tactical excuse, and what all this says about the health of the league.
And even what's happening in the world of Italian tennis. It all connects.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start with that controversy, the one surrounding a victory that was supposed to be a relief for the Bianconeri.
The U story is, it's a masterclass in just how high their standards are, and maybe a masterclass in internal dissatisfaction.
They got the result they needed, though, a 2-0 win against Paphos. That was crucial for their Champions League group classification. So on paper, it's a good day at the office.
On paper, yes. And the goals themselves, they had these moments of real emotional release.
Right, McKennie's goal. The papers were calling it a magic goal, a magia, just pure brilliance.
And then David scores the second. And that embrace he has with the coach, with Spalletti, that was significant.
Yeah, you could feel it. The sources mentioned he'd been dealing with a periodo difficile, a tough time for him personally. So that moment, that public support, it felt huge.
You would think.
Yeah.
You'd think 2 goals, none conceded, a bit of an emotional lift.
Yeah.
That should equal a positive headline, right? But no, not at all.
So here's where it gets weird. The performance itself was just savaged.
Savaged. The narrative across Gazzetta, across Toto Sport, is that the quality just wasn't there. It was severely lacking.
But is this just, typical Italian sports press hyperbole, or did the sources point to something specific, a real tactical reason for all this negativity?
Well, it's justified, at least according to the club's elders.
Yeah.
You have former coach Fabio Capello being particularly harsh.
Okay.
The paper said he was not tender with the team, which is a nice way of saying he was incredibly sharp.
He didn't pull any punches.
Not at all. He came out and said that this squad is, and I'm quoting here, certainly not the Juve everyone knows. He's basically saying the club's identity is gone.
Wow. That's a massive statement from someone like Capello. It's not just about winning anymore, is it? It's about winning a certain way, the Juventus way.
Precisely. And that feeling was echoed by the current manager, Spalletti, who seemed just as unhappy.
Even after a win.
Even after a 2-0 win. He was so critical, and he really zeroed in on the first half of the game. He said he saw, quote, embarrassing situations in the first half.
Embarrassing.
And then he added, everything was missing in the first half.
Everything was missing. They won 2-0. At least 2 goals weren't missing.
Right. But I think what he's getting at, and what the sources are picking up on, is a deeper structural problem.
Yeah.
The victory, it covered the scoreline, but it couldn't hide the tactical issues underneath.
And this criticism, it goes beyond the pitch, right? It bleeds into the financial side of things, too.
Oh, absolutely. Former midfielder Claudio Marchisio also piled on. He criticized the club for basically throwing away money on bad teams and poor signings over the last few years.
So when a club legend like Marchisio connects poor play directly to bad financial decisions, that puts a huge amount of pressure on the front office.
It does. The message couldn't be clearer.
Yeah.
The win was a fluke. The criticism is the reality.
It really feels like the goalposts for success at Juventus have moved. It's not enough to just get the 3 points anymore. The performance has to justify the money spent and the club's entire history.
Which is the perfect transition to Napoli. Because they had the opposite outcome, a clear loss, but their manager gave a very specific external reason for it. He almost managed the criticism before it could even start.
Right. So Napoli lost 2-0 to Benfica, a bad result that really complicates their Champions League hopes. And their coach, Conte, he took the loss, but he immediately pivoted. He blamed one thing.
He blamed scheduling and fatigue, but And this is why it's so clever, not just in a vague, oh, the players are tired sort of way. He made it a quantifiable, almost analytical complaint.
What did he say exactly?
He was quoted directly, "We're the same in play every 3 days," and then he dropped the key detail. Benfica had 2 extra days of rest.
Due giorni di riposo in più. That's such a pointed thing to say.
It is. He's basically arguing that in the hyper-competitive world of the Champions League, 2 days of rest is a bigger advantage than anything he could do with tactics or training.
He's saying the game was lost before it even kicked off.
Essentially, yes. He said the result was simple. Napoli was cooked, or Kodo. It wasn't a performance problem, it was a biological one. And you know what? The player readings from the papers seemed to back him up.
Oh, really? So the fatigue showed up in the numbers.
The ratings were brutal. Just brutal. They confirmed that lack of energy, the lack of sharpness. The midfielder Elmas, for example, got a 4.5.
Wow, a 4.5 that's really low.
It's terrible. And McTominay was also called out for being slow, for not being able to keep up. So when the coach says we were exhausted and the player grades confirm a lack of, basic motor function, the narrative just locks into place.
If you connect that to the bigger picture, it really highlights this incredible, almost unsustainable pressure on Italian teams. They're trying to compete on all fronts with very little rest.
And it creates this huge tactical dilemma for the managers. Do you go all out to win this European game? Or do you maybe rotate players, take the loss, and make sure your squad is fresh for the big league match on the weekend?
Especially with the Serie A title race being so tight.
Exactly. Milan and Napoli are tied at 31 points. Every single league game feels like a cup final. The managers are walking this tightrope between chasing domestic glory and just complete European burnout.
And speaking of that pressure cooker, we should probably shift focus for a second to the other clubs getting ready for Europa League action. Roma, they're heading into a really tough environment.
A very tough one. Glasgow to face Celtic.
That's never an easy trip.
No. The good news for Roma is that their coach, Gasperini, confirmed Dybala's fit and he's going to play. That's a massive boost for them. But he still expects a brutal fight.
And it sounds like the respect is mutual.
It is. The sources noted that Celtic's coach, Nancy, has huge respect for Gasperini. He even said he's been studying Gasperini's tactical systems for years. So this isn't seen as an easy game for anyone. It's a real tactical chess match.
Okay, so from a tactical battle, let's pivot to a financial one, because there was a truly jaw-dropping financial number that jumped out of the sources this week, and it's about newly promoted clubs.
This is staggering. It really speaks volumes about the level of financial risk clubs are now taking just to stay in the top division.
Yeah.
So the newly promoted club Como, they registered a colossal loss of 105 million euros.
Wait, 105 million in one season. For a team that just came up from Serie B, that number feels almost fictional.
It's an extraordinary number. And to put it in perspective, the sources broke it down. 86 million euros of that loss was just on wages.
Just on player salaries.
Just on salaries. So this wasn't, bad investments in infrastructure. This was a calculated existential bet on survival. They basically spent an established club's entire budget just on wages to try and stay in the league.
That makes you wonder if this is the new normal. If every newly promoted club now has to take that kind of massive gamble just to survive one season in Serie A.
It suggests financial sustainability is now, it's completely secondary to the need for immediate high-cost investment. That level of risk, it changes the entire structure of the league.
It really highlights the massive gap between the league's veterans and the newcomers. But it's not all red ink and exhaustion, is it? We did see some positive notes coming out of Milan.
We did. Over at Milan, things are looking pretty stable. The president, Scaroni, was full of praise for the manager, Allegri, calling him top. And that stability at the top seems to be paying off for them on the pitch.
And their success is really being driven by one player in particular who is on an incredible run, Christian Pulisic.
Pulisic is on fire. The source material called his stats numbers like a dream.
And what are those numbers?
He's averaging a goal per hour of play. A goal per hour. That is phenomenal. Across all of Europe's top leagues, only Harry Kane is doing better on that specific metric right now.
Wow. That level of efficiency from your star player, that's a huge reason why Milan are still tied at the top of the table. It shows that if you can get that stability and maximize your key players, you can fight back against all that pressure we were just talking about.
And speaking of high pressure and maximizing output, we should probably pivot away from football for a minute and look at the intense world of Italian tennis.
Right. Because right now, the tennis world is completely focused on this white-hot rivalry between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz.
And this isn't just a rivalry on the court. These two players represent an estimated 130 million euro turnover in commercial power alone.
So their rivalry literally fuels the business.
Immense fan interest, huge media attention. Yeah. And the sources are saying Alcaraz just threw a little bit of a subtle shade at Sinner this week.
Oh, what did he do, trying to get in his head?
It seems like it. He made this surprising comment where he seemed to snub Sinner a little bit by praising another unnamed player. He just said this other guy plays in a crazy way, or Gioca in Moto Puzzesco.
Huh, so is that a genuine snub or just mind games?
It's a classic move, isn't it? You divert the attention, you reduce the pressure of that one-on-one rivalry, and you let everyone else speculate about who you were talking about. It keeps the tension high.
And shifting from high-stakes rivalries to some pretty high-stakes policy debates. There was some strong commentary this week about the inclusion of transgender athletes in the Women's Tennis Association.
That's right. The sources report this is a conversation that's getting more and more charged.
And Arina Sabalenka weighed in.
She did, with very strong comments against the idea of opening the WTA to transgender athletes. She was very blunt, just saying it's not right.
And this isn't the first time we've heard something like this from a player, is it?
No, it's not. The issue came up earlier with the player Kostyuk, who had talked about some rivals being biologically advantaged.
So you have one player with a very direct categorical no, and another who's framing it more in terms of, I guess, a scientific justification for her concern. What does that tell us?
It shows that this conversation is incredibly divisive, and it's happening inside the locker room, not just among fans or pundits. Sabalenka's quote reflects a clear opposition from one side, while Kostyuk's earlier comments show that this idea of biological advantage is already being discussed as a factor that influences results. The sources are just reporting on a split that's become impossible to ignore.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's hit a couple of quick, entertaining nuggets from the sources to round out the week.
For sure. First up, the annual Gazzetta Sports Awards announced their winners.
A big night.
A very big night. The volleyball star Paola Egonu, she took home the big one, Athlete of the Year, an incredible performance all year long. And football's Lautaro Martinez was honored with the World Champion Award.
A great week celebrating Italian excellence across different sports.
Definitely. And for our final piece of surprising news, the tennis player Ocean Dodin made headlines. She became the first active professional female tennis player, at least that the sources noted, to join the platform OnlyFans.
Wow. Okay. That's a decision that definitely tests the boundaries of professionalism and personal branding.
It does. And it's also a fascinating reflection of the financial pressures that athletes face today and how they're navigating new income streams and their own public image.
What a journey. From victory and criticism to high finance and that. So to kind of synthesize the key takeaways here, that line between success and crisis in Italian sports is just razor thin.
It's incredibly thin. You have Juventus, they get the win, but they're savaged for not having the right quality. It suggests a victory on its own just isn't enough anymore.
And then Napoli's defeat, while painful for them, it puts a spotlight on a manager who is pointing directly at physical fatigue from a brutal schedule. Rest has become the new tactical secret weapon.
Exactly. And knowledge is most valuable when you can understand it and apply it. For you, the core theme this week is really how risk is being amplified everywhere in Italian sports.
From managers having to manage exhaustion like a tactic,
to newly promoted clubs making an existential bet of over 100 million euros just to try and stay afloat. The pressure is just immense, and it touches every part of the game.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the state of Italian sports and beyond.
You know, the sources show that Napoli's coach, Conte, he explicitly blamed those 2 specific days of extra rest that Benfica had for his team's defeat. And that raises a really important question for the future of the game, something for you to mull over on your own.
If Conte is right, if Benfica's Due Giorni di Riposo in Più really were the deciding factor, does the tactical battleground of elite European football now begins 72 hours before the whistle even blows, centered entirely on rest management rather than on formations and talent?
RRF Caserta, South Italy. News in English.